Thank you for inviting me to this conference. Thank you, Erik, for your remarks. As an economist, I think I could make much of the same points. As a man from the financial industry, I will look upon what's happening in energy markets from that perspective. First, it's hard to make forecasts about the future. These are the forecasts from the International Energy Agency. And the technique is quite simple. If for some reason prices have been increasing, you will expect them to continue to climb forever. If they start to come down, you will expect them to come back again. But of course, if they stayed long for a long while, they will stay long forever. If they start to increase, they will not increase further. But of course, if they have come up to a high level, they will continue upwards forever, until they fall again. That's the way we do our forecast as economists. Well, I'm not that much clever, but I try to think about markets in a sort of different way. And I don't have any precise forecast for the oil price or energy markets going forward. What I know is quite simple, that if prices are too high, too many people want to invest there, and the demand will be slowed down due to people try to avoid spending things that are expensive. Opposite, if prices are too low, investments will be too low, demand too high, and prices will come back again. That's the way capitalism works. This graph shows what Erik said about the, sort of technological revolution from US shale oil production, supporting almost all the growth in oil of the recent years. And of course, now the energy markets are uncertain what especially Saudi Arabia is thinking about when it's saying that it wants to keep its market share and also not trying to probably invest more and increase its production. But this is what has happened. And as Erik said, that the changes might be quite large over a short period of time. I'm not a specialist in energy markets, and some of the panel, they are working much more with energy and oil than I do. This is an illustration from Goldman Sachs, done a research on oil fields globally. And what has happened over the recent years is quite simple. The cost curve has come down and it has flattened. The flattening is mostly due to shale, but also, of course, to lower investment costs in all parts of the world now, of which many of you are now suffering. So the cost curve has declined substantially. And of course, this is the cost curve. The shale oil was not there some few years ago, and now it's an important part of the marginal production of oil globally, while the cost curve has come down for the other sources of oil, but not as much as on shale. I think if you look at the broader picture of what has happened recently when trying to look forward, it's quite simple. We had a super bubble in raw materials. We had underinvested in energy, in other raw materials during the 90s, even because prices were low. And China came into the world economy, growth was okay, and demand rose, the supply was not there. So we had a huge uptick in all raw material prices. Of course, they came down during the financial crisis, but China helped us out of it, prices rose again, but afterwards, prices have been sliding downwards. The revolution in shale gas in the US led to gas prices equaling some $20 to $25 per barrel. And that's the low-cost producer of energy today. The cost is 20. It led to lower prices for coal. It pushed down, as Erik said, gas prices in Europe. And electricity prices, by the way, from the peak has fallen 70%. And this is not confined to the energy sector. If you put energy or oil here into the broader raw material picture, you see the same thing. Iron ore, copper rose, aluminum rose. There we were able to increase supply quite rapidly, so we didn't get a huge hike in prices. But now we are on the way down. This is not, except for the past few months now, due to a lack of demand in the world economy. China is slowing down now, bringing the price for iron ore down, for example. But the big thing is that supply responded. This was oversupplied markets. And prices are more or less coming back to where they were in the start. And this is the best forecast you can make on the future. in many markets at least, that if no big changes happen on technology, prices will come back to where they came from. And they have done that to a large extent. I guess some of you are more familiar with this graph, at least from your top-line view on what's going on. Freight rates, dry bulk, is at the lowest level ever, even though demand is at the highest level ever globally. There's no lack of demand. It's, of course, a lot of supply. Or take the rig market. This is the profitability for jackups and floaters. And we got the recent prices down there, exactly where our analyst put this line some months or some quarters ago. And we are now in a normal downturn, in the meaning that the best one can cover the cash cost, no return on capital. And of course, still many rigs are coming to the market, but no new rigs will be ordered. Many are now scrapped, even new rigs are scrapped, and we'll get a better balance in the market after a while. Remember this one. Capitalism works because most capitalists don't understand how capitalism works. They overinvest in good times, the supply is coming to the market in weaker times, and then prices will be low and capitalism survives. We don't get any revolution. On the fossil side, we got the local environment problems, of course, back to the 50s, 60s in China now. We got the views on energy dependence from the Middle East. We got climate change, and all those policies now been introduced all over the world, at least most of the world. Prices were high, leading to more supply, and of course new technologies on renewables, on materials, and energy efficiency is increasing quite rapidly. And the scope for that to go on further is large, according to most researchers. And I think it's quite interesting now to check, where are smart people putting the money? And where are the best heads going now? Where do we see the patenting going on? Where is the change? This graph shows the same energy picture as the first one I had, just a long time scale, and the cost of solar is falling from the sky and have now reached traditional fossil sources. And 1 month ago now, Elon Musk presented his Powerwall. Of course, in Norway, we're not impressed by that. Having 10 kilowatt hours in a battery on the wall is not sufficient to heat the house more than some few hours during the winter time. But for billions in this world, it might be a revolution. And in fact now, the solar cost without subsidies combined with new batteries are now competing cost-wise with traditional sources of electricity. And this might lead to a quite rapid change. And I think it's now worth looking. This is translated from Google. If you read it in detail, you will understand that. But this was the picture when I was finalizing my presentation on Sunday. Øystein Strasbø, which I guess many of you know, is a very clever Norwegian investor, and he's been extremely skeptical towards the climate hypothesis. He thinks it's wrong. But he's now investing. He's now investing in hydrogen distribution in a Danish company. Spent a lot of money on that one. And he says he doesn't care about the climate. He doesn't care about all that sort of stuff. He just sees this market is now coming. So he wants to put his money there. And you know, of course, this quote from Sheikh Emani from 73, and the present minister in Saudi Arabia is saying the same thing. The oil age will not end due to lack of oil. And that, at least they're saying now, that's one argument because, for Saudi to try to capture the market share in oil market, because they know it won't last forever. And we know that the solar is increasing its share of consumption, of production of electricity, and it might increase substantially over the next years. Still, relax. Solar is still, can you see it? 0.2%, perhaps 0.3% now of total energy consumption. So it's a small fraction. Even if you add on all the other alternatives, they're still small. So as Erik said, Oil and gas and coal will be an important part of the energy supply system for decades to come. And we need huge investment in this sector also, no doubt about that. But still, it's worth thinking about it. What might happen in our lifetime? This I have stolen from Emery Lovins. He was at the energy seminar in Oslo some few weeks ago. This was from the Easter parade in Fifth Avenue, New York in 1900. You can see only horses, no car. Then 13 years later, 13 years, no horses, only cars. In between time, we have built up an auto industry, petroleum industry, distribution system, everything. Everything changed 100 years ago in 13 years' time. And I'm quite sure things will change the coming 13 and 26 and whatever years to come. So the times that are changing. Thank you.